My name is Emily Parker, and I grew up in a quiet suburb outside of Columbus, Ohio, a place where everyone's lawn was perfectly trimmed and neighbors greeted each other by name. My childhood wasn't exactly normal, but I had something most kids dream of: a dad who truly adored me. My mom had died young, so it was always just me and my dad, Mark. He was the kind of man who made the world feel safe. Every Sunday morning, he'd make pancakes with smiley faces, and when I scraped my knee or came home crying from a fight with friends, he'd take the day off work just to make me feel better. He called me his little star, and I believed it. With him, I never doubted that I was loved. My dad had always been careful about dating. He worried I'd think someone was trying to replace my mom, so for years it was just us. When I was 16, though, everything changed. He met a woman named Veronica at a charity book sale. Suddenly, he was coming home with flowers, humming while he cooked, smiling more than ever. For the first time, I saw what happiness looked like on him. I wanted to be happy for him, so I told myself I liked Veronica, too. She was soft-spoken with a sweet, quiet laugh and big brown eyes that sparkled when she looked at my dad. She always brought little gifts: homemade cookies, a scarf she'd knitted herself. At first, I thought she was shy, maybe just nervous around me. But soon, I started to notice things that felt off. The first warning sign came at dinner one night. My dad had left the table for a moment, and Veronica leaned across her plate, her voice low. "You know, Emily, if you want boys to like you might want to skip dessert sometimes." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I laughed it off, pretending I didn't care, but the words stuck with me. After that, things got weirder. Veronica started making little comments about my clothes, my eating habits, the way I laughed too loudly. My dad, always oblivious, just saw the best in her. When she began showing up more, taking over little routines that used to be just ours: pancake Sundays, movie nights, I tried to be gracious, to believe that my dad deserved happiness, even if it meant less space for me. I still remember the night Dad told me he was thinking about proposing to Veronica. His face was bright with excitement, his eyes searching mine for approval. I forced a smile, my heart pounding. "She makes you happy, Dad," I said. That's all that matters. I wanted to believe it was true. Veronica started staying over more often, slowly rearranging our lives. She brought in her own furniture, replaced the family photos with pictures of her friends, and took over the kitchen. One morning, I found she'd thrown out all my favorite snacks and replaced them with kale chips and diet soda. When I mentioned it, she just shrugged. "You'll thank me later." Despite my doubts, I kept my head down. I tried to be the good daughter, studied hard, cleaned the house, smiled at Veronica's friends, laughed at her jokes. But the house started feeling less and less like mine. The only thing that kept me anchored was my dad's old habit of sneaking me out for ice cream whenever he sensed I was sad. It was our secret ritual, our silent way of saying, "I see you." But as the months passed, Veronica's hold over my dad grew tighter. I found myself eating alone more and more, listening to their laughter echo through the house while I did homework in my room. Whenever I tried to talk to my dad about how I was feeling, Veronica would appear, slipping an arm around his waist, and the conversation would die. It was around this time that my eating habits started to change. I started skipping breakfast, then lunch. Veronica noticed and praised me. "See? You're finally learning a little discipline," she'd say, her smile sharp as a knife. My dad just nodded, proud of my healthy choices. But I was starving for something that had nothing to do with food. Summer arrived, and with it, the sense that I was losing my home one piece at a time. Veronica's influence became more obvious, and the warmth I'd grown up with started to fade. My dad was still loving, but distracted, his attention always half on his buzzing phone, answering Veronica's texts or planning their next special day. One evening, he came into my room holding a glossy pamphlet. "Emily, how would you feel about a trip to Miami? Just us and Veronica." The beach, some sun, a little adventure before college starts, he grinned, waiting for me to light up. I hesitated. I hadn't worn a swimsuit in months. My confidence was at an all-time low. Still, I forced a smile, unwilling to disappoint him. "Yeah, Dad, sounds great." The trip started off awkward. Veronica booked the nicest hotel and filled our itinerary with yoga classes and organic restaurants. She snapped photos of us everywhere, always placing herself between me and my dad. On our first night, she ordered salads for everyone without asking what we wanted. "It's important to start healthy habits young," she said, her eyes lingering pointedly on me. On the second day, as we lounged by the pool, Veronica leaned over and poked my arm. "Darling, you look a bit puffy. That's what happens if you keep snacking like you do. If you want boys to notice you, maybe try a little restraint." I froze, a burning shame rising up my neck. When Dad returned with drinks, Veronica flashed him a sweet smile. "Emily and I are having some girl talk, just helping her build confidence." He beamed at her, oblivious. That night, I locked myself in the bathroom and stared in the mirror, picking apart every flaw. My cheeks looked fuller, my thighs touched. Maybe Veronica was right. Maybe this was what growing up meant, learning to control yourself, to fit into someone else's vision of who you should be. By the end of the trip, I was barely eating. Veronica praised me constantly. "You have so much willpower. You're almost as disciplined as I was at your age." My dad congratulated me, too, mistaking my hollow cheeks and tired eyes for a glow-up. I smiled and let them believe it, even as I felt weaker every day. When we got home, the cycle continued. Veronica kept up her campaign, commenting on my body, policing my meals, inserting herself into every father-daughter moment. My dad, caught between the two of us, stopped noticing the strain. Instead, he poured himself into work and let Veronica handle the house. It all came to a head 3 weeks after Miami. I was standing in the kitchen, trying to summon the courage to eat something real, when my dad walked in. He stopped dead in his tracks, eyes wide with alarm. "Emily, are you okay? You look so pale, sweetheart." The concern in his voice almost ended me. I tried to wave him off. "Just tired, Dad." College was supposed to be my escape, and in a lot of ways, it was. I moved into a cramped but sunny apartment near campus, bought cheap dishes at the dollar store, and felt a freedom I'd never known before. For the first time, nobody was waiting to yell at me if I left a mess in the kitchen or came home late. My classes were hard, but I didn't mind. I liked the challenge. I made friends: Anna, who worked at the bookstore and loved horror movies, and Marcus, who grew up one town over and understood what it meant to feel like an outsider. Still, there were nights when loneliness crept in. Sometimes, I'd stare at the ceiling and wonder what my life would have looked like if my real parents had survived. Would I be happier, or would I just be a different kind of lost? On the hardest nights, I'd wind my dad's watch and listen to it tick, grounding myself in the sound, reminding myself that I belonged to someone once. The Carters almost never called. The only real contact I had with home was the occasional email from Martha about important tax forms, or Olivia tagging me in photos I didn't want to see. Most of the time, I ignored them. I told myself I was better off, that I didn't need them anymore. But it still hurt, especially when I saw other students' families visiting for Parents' Weekend, taking photos on the quad, cheering at football games. One day in November, right before Thanksgiving break, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. It was Martha. "Sam, we need to talk." "It's about Olivia." Her voice was thin, almost desperate. For a moment, I considered hanging up, but I didn't. Olivia, it turned out, was failing school, skipping classes, coming home drunk, hanging out with the wrong crowd. She'd crashed Robert's car the week before, and now the Carters were at their wits' end. "She listens to you, Sam," Martha said, her voice trembling. "Would you come home for a few days? Talk to her." The idea made my skin crawl. I hadn't been home in over a year. But part of me still cared about Olivia, about the hope that maybe, somehow, I could save her from making the same mistakes our parents made with us. I agreed to visit, mostly out of guilt. When I arrived, the house looked smaller, older, somehow less like home than ever. Olivia was waiting in her room, mascara smudged, hair unwashed, hoodie pulled up over her face. She looked up at me, and for a second, she was just a scared kid, not the person who'd spent years making my life miserable. We really talked for the first time in years. She admitted she was lost, that she missed having someone in the house who actually saw her. "It's like they stopped caring about me, too, once you left," she said, voice barely above a whisper. I told her the truth. They don't know how to love anyone who doesn't make them look good. "That's not your fault, and it was never mine either." We sat in silence for a while, the kind of silence that feels like a truce. Before I left, Olivia hugged me. "I'm sorry about your watch," she whispered, "and for everything else." I forgave her, not because she deserved it, but because I needed to move on. That weekend, as I got back on the bus to campus, I realized forgiveness was a gift I was giving myself. The pain would always be there, a dull ache, like an old bruise, but it no longer controlled me. Back at college, I threw myself into life again. I joined a study group, started running in the mornings, and even agreed to host a movie night in my tiny apartment. When my new friends filled the space with laughter, I felt, for the first time, that I was building a family of my own, one not defined by blood, but by choice. But he didn't buy it. "When's the last time you ate a real meal?" His voice was trembling, and for a moment, I saw the dad I remembered, the one who could always tell when I was hurting. The truth tumbled out before I could stop myself. Veronica said I needed to lose weight. She made me feel like I was disgusting. My dad's face crumpled in horror, a storm of emotions crossing his features: confusion, anger, guilt. Without another word, he pulled out pots and pans and made my favorite childhood dinner, homemade chicken Alfredo. He sat across from me, watching me eat, tears in his eyes. "You never have to change for anyone," he said quietly. "Not for Veronica, not for me. You're perfect as you are." Later that night, I heard raised voices in the living room, my dad finally standing up to Veronica. Her voice was shrill and desperate, full of blame and denial. When she left, she slammed the door so hard the pictures rattled on the walls. For the first time in months, I slept deeply. But Veronica wasn't done with us yet. Like and subscribe to see more stories like this. The morning after that night felt unnaturally quiet. I woke up uneasy, wondering what would come next. As I made my way downstairs, I saw Martha and Robert in the kitchen, talking in low, tense voices. When they noticed me, the conversation died instantly. Olivia sat at the counter scrolling through her phone, acting like nothing had happened. That day set the tone for the rest of my senior year. Home wasn't just uncomfortable now, it was suffocating. I buried myself in school and work, pulling extra shifts at the grocery store, studying late at the library, and spending every possible hour at Matt's place. The Carters barely noticed when I was gone. I'd show up for dinner and get a cold plate of leftovers and a few mumbled questions about my day, but they didn't really care about the answers. If I lingered in the kitchen too long, Olivia would glare at me as if daring me to complain. I started keeping my most important things, my dad's watch, a few family photos, letters from my birth mom locked away in my work locker. I didn't trust Olivia anymore. Every time something of mine went missing, I'd find it in her room days later, or not at all. Once, I caught her wearing my old hoodie, the one with my birth family's last name stitched on the sleeve. "Give it back," I snapped. She just smirked and tossed it on the floor. Didn't fit me anyway. Despite everything, I still hope things might get better. Maybe graduation would change things. Maybe after I left for college, they'd realize what they'd lost. But as spring rolled around, it became obvious I was truly on my own. One afternoon in April, I came home to find my room ransacked. Drawers pulled out, clothes on the floor, my hidden box torn open empty. My dad's watch was gone. I tore through the house, panic rising in my chest. Olivia was in the backyard with friends, laughing as if nothing had happened. "Where's my watch?" I demanded. She just shrugged. "Maybe you should keep your stuff where people can't find it." I ran to Martha, my voice shaking, but she barely listened. "You need to stop accusing your sister of everything, Sam," she said, not looking up from her laptop. "If you lost something, that's on you." That was at the moment something inside me snapped. I packed a bag, took what little cash I had, and walked out. I didn't say goodbye. I crashed on Matt's couch for the next week, scraping by with shifts at the grocery store and microwave dinners. Matt's parents were worried, but didn't pry. They gave me space, and for the first time in months, I felt like someone actually cared. I filed a police report about the watch, though I knew nothing would come of it. It was just a cheap old timepiece to anyone else, but to me, it was proof I still belonged to the family I'd lost. Now it was gone too. Graduation came and went. The Carters showed up for the ceremony, forced smiles on their faces, but left before I could even find them in the crowd. Olivia posted a photo on Instagram, writing, "Congrats to my big bro for finally finishing something." I blocked her that night. That summer, I found a tiny apartment near the university and threw myself into a new life. I worked 2 jobs, studied hard, and slowly built something that looked like hope. I still miss what I never had: a real family, a place to belong, but I was learning to live without it. The day before I moved, I got a call from an unknown number. It was a pawn shop owner downtown. "Hey, kid, someone brought in a silver watch with your name engraved. You wanna come get it?" I did. I bought it back with nearly everything I'd saved, the final piece of my old life now truly mine again. As I walked home that day, the watch ticking in my palm, I finally let go of the hope that things would ever go back to the way they were. Sometimes, you have to make your own closure. Spring brought new beginnings: a part-time job at the campus cafe, better grades than I dared hope for, and slow but steady healing. I started dating Anna, the girl from the bookstore, after we bonded over terrible coffee and a shared love of old rock records. My days grew busy: classes, work, movie nights, walks along the river. I was building something real, something that finally felt like mine. But the past wasn't done with me yet. One rainy Thursday, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. I almost ignored it, but something told me to pick up. On the other end was Olivia. Her voice was small, broken in a way I'd never heard before. "Sam, I need help, please." She'd been caught stealing at the mall. A stupid, desperate act. The Carters refused to bail her out or even pick her up. "She's 18 now. She needs to learn responsibility," Robert had told the police. Olivia had no one else to call. I left work early and took the bus across town to the station. When I arrived, Olivia was curled up on a bench, eyes red from crying, her hands shaking. For the first time in years, she looked younger than me again, lost, scared, the little sister I remembered from the days before everything fell apart. We sat in silence for a while, then, quietly, she told me everything. How the Carters barely spoke to her anymore, how they blamed her for every little thing that went wrong, how she'd fallen in with the wrong people because it was better than being alone. She tried to fill the hole our parents left with parties, drama, and attention, but none of it made her happy. "I thought if I could just be special enough, loud enough, they'd notice me," she said, but it never worked. I wanted to fix it for her, but I knew I couldn't. Instead, I told her what I'd learned the hard way. You can't make people love you by suffering for them. You can only love yourself enough to leave. We talked for hours, and for the first time, Olivia actually listened. She apologized again for the watch, for all the ways she'd hurt me, for being the golden child in a house that was never really a home. I told her I'd already forgiven her. It was the truth. I bought her dinner, gave her enough money for a cab home, and promised she could always call me no matter what. As I watched her ride away, I felt lighter. Not because everything was fixed, but because I'd finally let go of the responsibility to fix it. Back at school, Anna asked me what happened, and I told her everything. She listened quietly, then squeezed my hand. "You did the right thing," she said. "You can't save everyone, Sam, but you can save yourself." Summer came, and with it a sense of peace I hadn't known before. I worked extra shifts, saved up for next semester, and spent weekends with Anna and our friends cooking, laughing, making the kind of memories I'd always longed for. I still wore my dad's old watch, even though the band was frayed and the glass was scratched. Sometimes, late at night, I'd lie awake and listen to its ticking, letting it remind me that my story wasn't over. I'd survived. I'd made it out. I was building something better, piece by piece. As for the Carters, I heard less and less from them. Martha sent one more email that Summer just a forwarded link to a college fund Olivia would never use. Robert never wrote at all. But Olivia kept in touch. Not often, just enough, small steps, progress. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. There were still scars, old wounds that flared up on bad days, but there was hope, too. And for the first time, that was enough. Autumn arrived, painting the college campus gold and crimson. I found myself walking more, soaking in the air, marveling that I'd made it this far. My world was quiet, steady, finally my own. Anna and I fell into a rhythm classes, lazy Sundays, dreams of road trips and apartments with leaky faucets. We planned a future that felt possible. But the past was never far. Every now and then, I'd get a message from Olivia meme, a photo of her cat, sometimes just a single hey. She was working nights at a diner in a rundown part of Brighton Falls, barely scraping by. "I screwed up, Sam," she wrote once. "I thought I was so smart. I wish I could start over." She never asked for help outright, but I could read between the lines. She dropped out of community college, fallen behind on rent, and had started selling off anything she had left: old clothes, electronics, even the childhood art she'd once made for Martha to hang on the fridge. Robert and Martha, as far as I knew, had washed their hands of her. I sent her some money when I could, but I was barely scraping by myself. One November evening, she called, voice raw with exhaustion. "I got fired. Sam, can I crash on your couch for a few nights?" I didn't hesitate. Anna and I made up the futon and filled the fridge with leftovers. Olivia slept for almost 24 hours. When she woke up, she was thin and pale, with the shadow of someone much older in her eyes. Over breakfast, she finally told me the rest of it: how she'd taken out payday loans just to keep the lights on, how she'd maxed out credit cards buying things she hoped would fill the emptiness. "I thought I could buy my way to happiness," she said, her voice breaking, "but I just lost everything instead." There was nothing left of the golden girl who once ruled our childhood home, just my little sister, fragile and real. She cried as she admitted she'd pawned the last thing of value she had, the gold necklace Martha gave her at graduation. "I should have never sold your watch, Sam. I know I can't make it up to you, but I wish I could." I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "We're here. That's what matters now." Olivia stayed for a month, picking up shifts at a local grocery store, eating dinners with Anna and me, sometimes joining us for movie nights. Slowly, she started to smile again, small, shy at first, but real. She got her own place, just a cramped studio, but it was hers. She paid her bills, learned to stretch every dollar, and called me whenever she felt like slipping back into old patterns. I was proud of her, not for what she'd lost, but for what she'd survived. A year passed. I graduated, moved to a better apartment, and landed a job as a junior engineer. Anna and I adopted a stray dog, filled our tiny kitchen with houseplants, and talked about maybe, one day, starting our own family. Sometimes, Olivia still struggled working 2 jobs, taking the bus to save money, patching together a life from scratch. But she never quit. We celebrated her 21st birthday with cheap cake and thrift store party hats, laughing until we cried. Robert and Martha, they moved out of state, chasing a quieter life. I never heard from them again. The old wounds didn't disappear, but they stopped hurting so much. My dad's watch still ticked on my wrist, a small, steady heartbeat, reminding me where I'd come from and how far I'd gone. If there's anything I learned, it's that family is more than blood or last names. Sometimes it's the people who stay when you have nothing left to offer. Sometimes it's the ones who find their way back even after losing everything. I survived, and so did Olivia. In the end, that was enough. And for the first time, I knew I'd made my own forever home.